Morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's 9 o'clock. With the lack of a gavel, we'll officially start the meeting. Just want to remind everybody that we have adjusted the agenda for those who are essentially watching online or whatever. For those folks who wanted to see the presentations for finance, legislative services, and human resources, those were done yesterday afternoon or yesterday morning, I guess. Sorry, yesterday afternoon. So if you want to see those presentations, you can go on YouTube, I believe, Madam Clerk, and catch up on those. With that in mind, we are going to start day 2 of our budget deliberations, and we're going to begin by acknowledging that this gathering of, let me begin again. We begin this gathering by acknowledging and celebrating these traditional lands as a gathering place for the first peoples and their ancestors who are entrusted to care for Mother Earth since time immemorial. We do so respecting both the land and the Indigenous people who continue to walk with us through this world. Today, the county is committed to working with Indigenous peoples and all residents to pursue a united path of reconciliation. So with that, the agenda now will begin with presentation on Fairmount Homes. And Ms. Brandt, I believe you have the microphone.
Great, thank you. Let's make sure we're fine with. Thank you so much. Okay, so good morning, Warden, Deputy Warden, Council. I'm pleased to present an overview of long-term care services and the major changes in Fairmount Homes business plan. So just a quick overview of Fairmount Home. It's a 128-bed long-term care home. It's accredited through CARF accreditation. We've been tracking the residents of their last known location since 2017, and the home primarily services City of Kingston residents at approximately 82% of the home's residents, with about 8% coming from Frontenac County and the remaining from primarily other areas in Ontario. We're a 24-hour operation, as you'd expect, with approximately 230 staff and 50 active volunteers. And it's very important to highlight that County Council is the board of director and licensee under the Fixing Long-Term Care Act, and each municipality, so upper tier or single tier municipality, must establish and maintain one long-term care home. Just a quick overview of the legislation that's applicable to the home. Fixing Long-Term Care Act, along with its associated regulation 24622, with a focus on resident care or quality of resident care, resident safety and enforcement, emergency planning, and infection prevention and control as well. The Connecting Care Act also impacts the home. It mandates long-term care homes in Ontario to initiate evolving province of Ontario priorities through its organization, Ontario Health. And finally, Bill 7, which enforces patient transfers from hospital to long-term care homes without the patient's consent. So let's have a look at long-term care demand in Ontario. From the Ontario Long-Term Care Association, the population of residents over the age of 80 is anticipated to double by 2040, sorry. Residents who are admitted to long-term care currently have high care needs, as you'll see by the attached graph, with that top line showing the increasing care needs of residents who are coming into long-term care. And approximately just over 5.5% of residents who are in long-term care could potentially be provided services elsewhere other than long-term care. So let's have a look at wait list. Wait lists for long-term care have doubled in the last 10 years, with more than 48,000 people currently on a wait list for long-term care. As noted on the slide, wait lists are equivalent to about the size of a mid-sized town, such as Aurelia or Orangeville. That's the number of citizens who are awaiting long-term care presently. Fairmount Home has 412 people on its wait list as of July 31st. And with the home's current capacity of 128 beds and our admission rates that we're currently doing, it would take about 7.5 years just to admit the residents who are currently on our list. Again, following up on the wait list. In Ontario, the average citizen will wait 126 days to access long-term care, some waiting up to 2.5 years. There are just over 76,000 long-term care spaces in Ontario, and those spaces are at full capacity now. More importantly, Ontario needs 30,000 new beds just to service the people who are currently on the wait list today. In addition, Ontario requires an additional 48,000 beds by 2029, or in just 4 years, in order to meet the growing demand. This is a quick comparator to have a look at how Fairmount Home is doing to some other local long-term care homes. So Fairmount in this list of comparators has 128 beds, so it would benefit least from the economies of scale with the reduced number of beds. Our adjusted total cost per bed at approximately 142,000 is just higher than the average of 140,000. Our overhead is just over 6,000 in comparison to the average of 7,000. And finally, when compared to the city of Kingston, Fairmount's beds are $27,333 less. That's per bed. So Fairmount's budget would have to increase by $3.5 million in order to be comparable to the city of Kingston's long-term care home. So this slide again shows data from the Ontario Long-Term Care Association, which is similar to Fairmount's experience. In 2024, 80% of long-term care homes reported difficulty filling shifts for registered practical nurses and registered nurses. More than 40% reported difficulty filling PSW and dietary shifts. Long-term care homes have also seen a 45% turnover in its leadership. Just some more comparator data. This data is from the Canadian Institute for Health from 2020 to 2023. And what it is showing is that the regular hours worked in long-term care is only increased by 0.6%, while purchased hours or temporary agency staffing is increased by 238%. Overtime hours have increased by just more than 74%, and sick time at approximately 15%. What these trends are showing is a decline of employees working in long-term care, with overtime and temporary agency helping to fill the gap. More data here, and this is the financial implications across Eastern Ontario, so data from our EOWC group. Fairmount's temporary agency usage is just above the average for the group. Factors for that increase, for the home being above the average, I would say, is the home's location in a healthcare community where we compete with large long-term care homes and large hospitals for our healthcare staff. In addition, we have a lack of public transit to Fairmount home. And without that public transit, it's a lack of a way to induce additional staff, students, and volunteers who would have been able to use that public transit to get to and from the home. And in addition, just one other factor is Fairmount Home's shortage is within the registered staff classification, which transfers to a much higher rate being charged by the temporary agencies because it's for registered staff. And I want to spend a lot of time on this because you did hear from our team at the last county council meeting in regards to our deliverables and our progress on BPSO in year one. But I just wanted to highlight that the main point, or that what I see is important, is that 20% of our staff have chosen to become best practice champions and to be able to participate in BPSO, where the home's requirement was 6% of staff. So it shows the engagement by staff at Fairmount Home, which is great to see. And again, you also saw this slide from the team at the last council meeting as well. But I just wanted to touch base on that the pressure injuries were approximately at about 6% prior to the best practice guidelines being implemented. The home has a target of 4% by the end of 2025. And as you can see, we are well on our way of sustaining, in around the 2% range by the end of this year. So it shows great progress of the BPSO and clinical pathways as well. This slide just touches on the deliverables from the best practice spotlight year 2. And just to highlight a few, the home will implement transitions in care, which is another best practice guideline, as well as the clinical pathways for falls and the pains pathway as well. So business plan challenges. And I think we've covered this every year, but just to highlight again, if we have a look at these 2025 budget figures, provincial funding represents about 62% of the home's funding, and there is a risk of unanticipated funding changes. Staff do not receive confirmation from the province of Ontario or the Ministry of Long-Term Care until approximately April 2026. So that is 4 months after County Council has already approved the home's budget for 2026. Hours of care. So you're aware that the province of Ontario mandated the 4 hours of care per resident per day, but I just wanted to highlight that Frontenac County Council and Fairmount's management team has been an advocate for the 4 hours of care since 2016. And I really want to thank County Council for their support of Fairmount's residents long before the province identified the 4 hours of care as a priority. So in this chart, what you'll see is the blue is the projected capital costs that are to be spent on maintaining the current home based on the condition assessment that was completed in 2024. The red line is a cumulative line, which shows you cumulatively what will have to be spent to maintain the home over the next, well, till about 2048. And as a reminder, Fairmont Home was built in 1968, was redeveloped 21 years ago in 2004. The buildings and its systems are aging, which can lead to unanticipated expenditures to ensure the home can continue to meet its legislative requirements. The home's redevelopment was originally assessed by G Architects back in July 2022. And again, it was presented to County Council in April 2023. In October 2023, staff brought forward a report with several options. And at that time, Council had directed staff to further investigate maintaining the current facility with the addition of 32 beds. County Council and staff will continue to investigate and look at all options for the home's redevelopment over the next short term. So I just think it's important to highlight to council and to everyone the priority of the aging home and what we need to look at as far as future development for the home. So let's look at accomplishments for 2025. I mean, we've already spoke of BPSO and clinical pathways, which highlights the home's commitment to continuous improvement in resident care. The septic feasibility study was also conducted, which is providing County Council with the options of replacement for the home. And I believe at our last meeting, or last couple of meetings, maybe 2 meetings ago, we made a decision to move forward with a replacement. In addition, staff training is highlighted here. Behavioral Supports Foundations was provided to staff to better understand responsive behaviors. In addition, medication management training, as well as the home's mandatory annual training for all staff. There was also improvements to the courtyard. There's new furnishings, accessible garden beds for residents to do gardening, and storage sheds for their equipment. Other accomplishments would include successful funding applications for the purchase of diagnostic and special equipment. The home received a grant from the Local Priorities Fund for just over $44,000, Equipment and Training Fund for just over $21,000. There's several home improvements as well over this year, and that includes a new diesel fuel tank and a transfer switch for the home's generator, replacement of the fire pump control panel, elevator upgrades, installation of a public address system, which is critical during an emergency situation for communication with staff and residents. And finally, a redesign of the nursing station to assist residents and staff in a full replacement of the south side roof of the building. The home has also implemented multiple emergency response drills, including fire drills, staged evacuations of residents, drills for violent outbursts and outbreak of communicable disease, just to name a few. So I'd just like to review the challenges and mitigations from the business plan. Fairmont Home needs to continue, or the County of Frontenac, as well as Fairmont Home, needs to continue to participate in any changes that's initiated by the province through Ontario Health. The home must also maintain a balance between resident care and documentation, which can have implications on the home's funding if the documentation isn't maintained. And the health human resource crisis as well continues to drive, as we already discussed, the need for a temporary agency. So in collaboration with HR, the home will continue to monitor staffing and initiating recruitment and retention initiatives. Additional things that we talked about, the septic system already in that the home is an aging building. So as I mentioned before, there will be continued investments in the aging home, including building and fire systems, the septic and water systems. And provincial and federal regulations related to these systems can change frequently. So it's important that we maintain additional reserves just to support these changes as they may come forward. And as previously mentioned in prior slides, 62% of the home's funding is mandated by the province of Ontario through the Ministry of Long-Term Care, which can represent unanticipated funding changes post-budget. And let's just talk about a couple of challenges. So challenges include the expectation to admit inappropriate candidates. The home's wait list has included candidates such as recently released inmates who cannot be cared for by female staff, as well as candidates with extensive addictions and mental health. And unlike hospitals, long-term care homes do not have 24-hour security, and they are not able to use the same mitigation measures such as restraints. Advisements include increasing expectations for additional services, and those expectations come through Ontario Health, families, and residents as well. And finally, with the assistance of finance, we must continue to monitor the residents' accommodation fees for accounts receivables that are not being paid and initiate legal action if required. So I'd be happy to answer any questions before I turn it over to Chelsea, who will present our first project proposal for your consideration.
Thank you, Susan. Appreciate it. Questions, comments? We'll start with Councillor Smith.
Just a question on the specialized care patients that come in. Do we have any choice?
We have
in
very limited,
accepting them?
the act provides primarily two reasons we can deny an admission. One is we don't have the equipment or staff expertise to manage the resident's condition. The second is we don't have the physical facilities to do it. So it does make it a challenge if there's extensive health and mental health and addictions considerations. If we have the nursing expertise and there isn't any need for any changes in physical facilities, it's very difficult to deny their admission.
Does that satisfy your question?
It does. I'm just thinking as an old lady in a home, I would not like that. So I'm wondering if that also affects staff wanting to come to work in long-term care anymore, because it's changed so drastically from looking after the little old people to Alzheimer's, and now these specialized folks, very
Yeah.
difficult.
Yes, but I assure you, the management team does their very best to assess the candidates and everything that we can do to support those candidates coming in and existing residents and staff.
Well, I'm sure you do, but it's got to be difficult though.
I believe our CEO would like to comment.
I just wanted to point out that through the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, this is something that we continue to advocate for and bring forward. Warden Lichty was part of a delegation that met with the Minister of Long-Term Care, and this is something we continue to push, and it's not something unique to us here at Fairmount. It's something across the board that needs to be addressed provincially.
Councillor Greenwood-Spears.
Thank you for this added piece of information. That is much appreciated. And I would actually be a little suspicious that we may have a higher rate in this area, given the amount of incarceration that we have in the area and that. And so they do tend to get older in that. And obviously there needs to be a political solution that, and it may not just be with long-term care. It may be with public safety and things of that nature, and that for additional funding and that. But going back to earlier discussions when we were talking before conceptually about any future development, specialized areas is one of the things that I pointed out, because I have worked in aggressive settings and that, where staff were literally put up against the window, and if they had a window, it was the fourth floor, by patients that are supposedly incapacitated, but they are not physically incapacitated. So I do appreciate the danger that is associated with that. And if you have any additional suggestions, and that, I think it would be good. But I think we need to support you in being very assertive with any of the provincial and potentially federal funding to get that 24-hour support of security in there. That's the reality. And I can also say that at a former nursing home, that my director of care became the expert witness at a murder trial between patients. So I'm very concerned and have been for a long time, and I think we need to be very assertive. Thank you.
As I said, we do our best, but, and we have been inspected before by ministry inspectors because of denying residents, but we do our best and make those denials and deal with those inspections as they come.
Councillor Vanderwall.
I just have a comment or a suggestion. When you're saying that it's hard to get volunteers, I don't know how much youth are volunteering now. I know if I look at all my grandkids and they're all playing sports, nobody's volunteering for nothing. But on the flip side of that, I think maybe you need to, and I don't know if it's advertise or promote Fairmount Home in the high school.
Correct.
I will tell you that Sydenham High School, you'll be shocked at how many kids have their license and have their own cars already. Not so much in the city because they can take a bus everywhere,
Mhm.
but rural kids all have a car.
Right.
And I don't want to go back too far, but 50-some years ago, my wife in high school worked at Fairmount. Right? She worked at Fairmount 3 days a week, drove the car from high school to here.
Right.
And so I think it needs to be promoted maybe more in those rural high schools,
Right.
that there's opportunities for summer employment or youth employment or whatever.
Yes.
And which could follow into a career. Because rural youth are different and they have to drive everywhere. So they have those opportunities and those freedoms to drive.
I like driving.
Yes.
But I think it's an opportunity that it should be promoted maybe more in, especially the rural high school.
No, absolutely. I mean, we do through social media, and I am very proud to say we do have some younger students who do choose to come and volunteer. And I don't know whether they choose because maybe they have family members who work in long-term care, but it is great to see them there. Thank you.
Warden Licky?
So going back to what Kevin, our CAO, was talking about, I was in the delegation at AMO when we talked to the minister. The minister seemed to be aware of the problem. I got the impression that you are getting a patient and you're getting that patient tonight and you have no choice. That patient is not suitable and our staff are not trained for it. So, and Susan knows and Kevin knows, I slowly changed my opinion on how and when we should be upgrading the particular facility. And maybe if we have to go back 30 years to where it used to be before they closed all the psychiatric hospitals. But I mean, maybe we need to include a wing where we could isolate them from our patients. Because like Fran just referred, if she was a patient in there or I was a patient, I wouldn't want someone down the hall from me 4 rooms who has a problem and nobody can really control.
I think the word is resident. I don't know if you're a patient.
Patient, I apologize. You're 100% right. I could have said, so never mind. He'll leave it to you to point it out. Thank you.
I believe those comments were captured by the CAO. Thank you for that. Councilor Greenwood-Spears.
Just in the warden's defense, patient means to suffer. Residents live in places that they choose to live in and enjoy. And so I have always looked at these people as patients in long-term care. They're residents in retirement homes.
Susan, if I could, I had 2 questions. There's been a lot of publicity, I guess, by the provincial government about the increasing numbers of nurses and stuff. Is that showing up in your area? Is it having any benefit?
We may see an increase in some students, but I think it's just going to take time, right? It takes time. They're trying to promote the education they're actually funding. They have programs where they're actually funding students, so they're paying for the students' education to complete nursing programs. So I think we'll see those changes in the next 4 years once some of those students start coming out of school. But our team has been very great at bringing forward students and supporting them through through the home to complete their education in hopes that they will choose to come and work at Fairmount once they're done.
And if I could, I don't know if you covered this or not. How long is the average patient there?
At Fairmount?
Yes.
I would.
Sorry, resident.
Resident, I would say along the year and a half, significantly less than what they were 20 years ago, if I'm not incorrect. Okay, thank you.
Something less than 2 years. Yeah.
Mhm,
Thank you
mhm.
for that. And Councillor Vanderwall.
At one time, I think some patients were here 20 years. So that's how
Many
much
years
it's
ago.
changed.
Mhm.
The other part is I hope that when they're training and taking the education, just like paramedics, they actually show them what the real world is like instead of just making it sound like, oh, if you want to be a nurse at Fairmount Home, it's all warm and rosy. But it's not. There's a lot more challenges than there used to be. And I think students need to be made aware of that before they went through it all and then they hit the ground running and then they go, wow, this is totally different than what I thought, right?
I'm sure there's those same challenges in acute care as well. I'm
Yeah.
sure they deal with challenges there as well. So yeah, absolutely.
And for our CO, it seemed to me we had a conversation about this in exploring the possibility of extended bus service and transportation from the city out here. Did anything ever become of that?
So we continue to have conversations with the city. There was previously a study done to expand the traditional transit. I think the costs of that were quite high. In recent conversations with the city, they're looking at on-demand transit and options that would be more cost effective instead of expanding the actual bus routes. So those conversations are ongoing. It's something that Susan identified in her business plan as a challenge for us. So we'll continue to explore those options.
Sorry, Counselor Smith.
I think I've said this about 10 times, but why don't we buy a bus and hire a bus driver and call it the Fairmont bus? And not rely on the city, but have our own bus. I don't know, maybe it's something we could pull out of reserves. We buy ambulances, we buy all kinds of things. Let's buy a bus.
The CEO is making notes.
One of those ambulances that doesn't have the equipment in it. No, just-
So Susan, thank you for your presentation. I
Thank you.
believe you have another,
Chelsea.
sorry, Counselor Licky, did you have a? No. Okay,
Okay, I'll turn it over to Chelsea. Thank you so much.
thank you. Chelsea, my apologies for the disruptive discussions right now. Anytime you're ready, you have our complete attention.
Yeah, I'll just wait till I'm loaded. Oh, look at that. Okay. You learn something new every day. You know what? I'm really focused on the bus discussion because if we could make it an accessible bus too, there's just a lot of wonderful things we could do with said bus. But anyways. Okay, for those who don't know me, my name is Chelsea Cocker and I am the Assistant Director of Care for Resident Services here at Fairmount. Today, I'm going to present a project proposal for a full-time responsive behaviors recreationist. So I'd like to talk to you about what responsive behaviors are. A responsive behavior can include changes in mood, delusions, apathy, agitation, wandering, calling out, repetitive questioning, and sexual disinhibition. It is estimated that responsive behaviors occur in about 80% of individuals living with a neurocognitive disorder. Major neurocognitive disorders, also known as dementia, are a group of conditions characterized by a decline in mental abilities. These disorders can significantly impact a person's ability to function independently and perform daily tasks. Currently, 116 of our 128 residents, or 91% of our residents, are experiencing some form of a neurocognitive disorder. We are proposing that we add a full-time responsive behaviors recreationist. Recreationists have the education to utilize recreation and leisure to improve the physical, emotional, and social well-being of individuals living with neurocognitive disorders. They assess resident needs, develop individualized recreation care plans, and implement activities to enhance the quality of life and engagement of residents. So currently, our responsive behaviors team is comprised of one full-time responsive behaviors PSW and one part-time responsive behaviors PSW. Responsive behaviors PSWs are not trained or educated to create and facilitate large group programming. It is known that many responsive behaviors occur due to boredom. The responsive behaviors recreationist would provide full-time programming to our secure home area, Lilac Terrace, which is where 63% of our critical incidents occur. A critical incident is an event or situation that could potentially cause serious harm to a resident's physical, mental health, safety, or well-being. The majority of critical incidents that our home submits are due to resident physical abuse. So far in 2025, we have had 41 critical incidents, 26 of which have occurred on Lilac Terrace, our secure home area. All critical incidents are reportable to the Ministry of Long-Term Care. Last year, we increased programming in the evening for 2 months to understand if increased programming could help decrease the number of responsive behaviors occurring in the home. Over the 2-month period, 18 4-hour programs were run on our secure home area, averaging about 10 residents in attendance per program. During this time, no responsive behaviors occurred. In the same time period, outside of when the programs were being run, 19 documented responsive behaviors occurred, resulting in 3 critical incidents. The primary goal of our responsive behaviors team are to decrease resident-to-resident physical aggression, to be proactive in identifying triggers and outlying interventions, to support residents with neurocognitive disorders to continue to engage in meaningful programming, to decrease reactive responses, and to decrease the use of antipsychotics. These goals can be met with the help of a recreationist by providing engagement. Having a responsive behaviors recreationist would allow us to have a consistent person to engage our residents with known responsive behaviors in meaningful programming throughout the day. It would allow our responsive behaviors team to grow, learn, and expand in our knowledge of programs and activities that can engage and keep our residents with responsive behaviors focused. Engagement is more than just setting up an activity. It's about involving our residents in their day-to-day structure, creating a flow and environment that supports everyone. It can mean starting the shift, gathering residents for a nice cup of coffee or tea, chatting and reminiscing as they indulge in some breakfast before heading to the activity room to play around a ball hockey or outside to the courtyard for a walk and some gardening. It's about creating healthy routines, having residents up in the morning, engaged and active throughout the day in order to promote a better sleep hygiene cycle. Engagement is something that can become infectious, something that can be carried through our other programs, groups, departments, and home areas, and to build capacity home-wide in how we can better support our residents. I asked one of our current recreationists to tell me what engagement means to them. They responded with, "To me, engagement means watching a resident come to life at the sound of familiar music. It means witnessing a resident who is mostly nonverbal clearly sing lyrics to familiar songs. It's watching former artists hold paintbrush and begin making colorful creations again. It's unlocking memories, stories, and histories long thought to be lost forever. It's witnessing the joy in former athletes as their muscle memory takes over and they score goals at floor hockey or other sports. It's seeing the warmth in a resident's eyes as they hold hands with a child at an intergenerational program. It's watching a resident's face light up as they taste their favorite recipes at a baking group. Engagement is feeling the warm embrace of a resident while dancing or wiping tears from eyes as we share grief or celebrate milestones. It's watching a resident admire their freshly painted manicure or witnessing the joy of a resident attend a ballet in the community. In short, resident engagement means helping a resident find the meaning in life that they may have thought was lost forever. I won't review these next 2 slides in detail. However, they're just here to show you how heavily legislated the home is. These slides outline just some of the expectations the ministry has regarding the responsive behaviors program. In order to achieve an interdisciplinary approach, we need to include a team member outside of the nursing department, which a recreationist would fulfill. The responsive behaviors PSWs are here collectively 112.5 hours in a 336-hour pay period. This means that a responsive behaviors team member is only here 33% of the time to manage all the expectations listed within the Act. Adding a full-time recreationist would increase this to 55%. It would also mean that outside of the responsive behaviors team, our recreation support increases, as our existing recreation staff complement would now support 1 to 48 residents versus the 1 to 64 they're supporting right now. This would allow for more programming to support resident needs home-wide, which has been a goal of Resident and Family Council, as evident through our previous year's resident and family satisfaction surveys. Part of Fairmount's strategic plan is to be the home of choice. Our values, being a gentle care facility, mean that we're committed to the gentle care philosophy, resident-focused care, which empowers residents to take power of their care and make individual choices. We are also committed to be a leader in the provision of exceptional quality care through teamwork, innovation, and continuous learning. Adding a responsive behaviors recreationist is a critical step in meeting the evolving needs of our residents at Fairmount Home.
With the diverse and changing population entering long-term care, using a person-centered approach and having adequate staffing levels are necessary to provide tailored and accurate behavioral care plans that can actually be put into play. The cost of the project is listed. Any questions?
Thank you very much. I saw Councillor Fowler making some notes.
Just, do you ever get into a situation where you have to call in outside agencies like the police or somebody like that?
We have in the past, yes.
And just on the note, the big part that you had that you read out, I experienced with my father-in-law, he was in an Alzheimer's wing in one of these residences, and he, a minister came in and started playing the piano, and he was leading the singing in that whole group. They had everybody from everywhere come, so it's a good job that you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
To me, it just makes so much sense with ourselves. When you're busy, you feel better at the end of the day. So I certainly support this.
Sorry, Councillor Greenwood Spears.
Have you identified a specific time frame that is the worst? I'm thinking sundowner syndrome, is that the worst, or is
You
it
know,
during the night?
we did look at it, and there, after lunch seems to be a tricky time. There are ebbs and flows in terms of further into the evening, but not as much as you would think. And I think the challenge is right now, we don't have someone activating our residents. So they're sleeping in until 10, 11 in the morning as per gentle care philosophy. But if we have someone who everyone knows is there to get me up and activated, I'm going to go enjoy a nice hot cup of coffee with a group of friends, not by myself. People are going to be more apt to want to get up, to want to get activated. And we all know if we start our day in an earlier routine, we're ready to retire a little bit earlier in the evening. When we're sleeping in until 10 or 11, well, unfortunately, we're also going to be up much later in the evening. And in the evening, there's less going on and naturally more room for our brains to get lost in triggers and reactions.
Thank you. I did have one question for you, and then Councillor Vanderwall. Are you modeling this after something that exists, or are you creating this?
We are creating this. I know that there's a home who has something similar, an engagement PSW. It's not a recreationist, but a PSW who's focused on trying to get people up and more active, and then bringing them to programs they already have running in the home. Their recreation team is a bit larger than ours, so they already sort of have those people there. It's just this PSW who's helping get them to the programs that are happening. And it has significantly impacted the amount of critical incidents our home is seeing.
Thank you. Councillor Vanderwall.
Just to comment that on kind of what the rest are saying. I think it's important that people have a purpose of something to do in the day. And I can see how this would make sense, although the one picture I saw, if I do make it to Fairmount, don't give me a hockey stick. People don't think I should have one now.
Write that down.
Warden Lidkey.
I'd like to make a motion that, and forget that. I think this is, getting old is only good for the pharmaceutical companies and the companies that make all the mobility agents or devices and so on or whatever. It's not the golden age that everybody talks about. It's tough. And I support this. I think, it's tough. And my only concern is we're looking at a new home potentially growing, and it goes back to what Susan was talking about. We're going to have to provide staff for this. So, it's time to get on it, start thinking outside the box. So you have my vote on this one.
Thank you.
I don't think we should
sorry.
make the home of choice. We've got a 7-year waiting list.
Until you get the hockey stick, then.
Councillor Leonard.
Well, I totally agree with this. I see what's going on inside quite frequently, as there is a person in there that I do know. And since he has come here, things have gradually increased in the best way. And it can only get better. And I'll tell you, it's hats off to you people. And I totally agree with this. Thank you.
It would appear you're getting overwhelming support.
It might be this. Thank you so much.
If there's no other questions, we're good. And I believe we're going to move on to the next project proposal. Emily, I'm going to get you to turn the microphone. I believe it's not on. Thank you.
Is that better? Hey. Good morning, Council. It's a pleasure to be here today. I am going to propose a project proposal for our 2026 budget to enhance our registered nurse staffing complement to meet the resident demands, as well as upholding our established standards that our facility are well known for. So the role of a registered nurse, this is the position I'll be requesting today, at Fairmount Home, has clinical oversight. They also have what they do at Fairmount Home after their 4-year degree education is they provide clinical oversight and documentation. They respond to identifying and responding changes in resident health statuses. They conduct thorough assessments and ensure accurate documentation and communication of care plans and interventions in accordance to the College of Nurses of Ontario and the Fairmount Home policies. They also are responsible for the medication order management, such as overseeing the systematic processing, including prescriptions, treatments, labs, tests, and dietary modifications issued by our physician, our 2 nurse practitioners, and dietitian. This verifying of orders does have a lens of mitigating medication errors. So it is a very important role that the RNs are ensuring accuracy. They're responsible for staff supervision and mentorship. RNs supervise all nursing and personal care staff and do help guide all Fairmount staff. They ensure the delivery of consistent, safe, and accountable care. They serve as mentors, fostering professional development, promoting a culture of continuous learning and performance management. After hours, they also do staffing coordination. So our schedulers do get to leave at 4 o'clock every day, and they put that hat on and do the scheduling after hours. They are responsible for collaborative communication. They want to ensure all parties are aware of everything that is going on, such as talking to the substitute decision makers, the residents, all staff, our pharmacy, our interdisciplinary team to say this is the changes and this is what we're doing today to ensure holistic and coordinated care. They're also have additional training under our emergency response plan. So they provide that leadership and manage risk management incidents as well as emergencies, building code issues and conflicts, especially after hours when the management team have left. They are empowered to make critical decisions that safeguard the well-being of our residents and staff. Some background. So the current coverage, we currently have 1 RN and on nights and 1 RPN. Is everyone aware of the difference? There's some difference in education and status for those 2 positions. So they are responsible for 128 residents from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Regulatory requirements. So it is very regulated in the Fixing Long-Term Care Act that we have an RN on 24/7. So this is not a care requirement for any other position, including the RPNs. So what happens is with this 1 RN on nights, if there's a last minute emergency, which does happen, 1 lone body, what happens is we would have to mandate the evening RN to stay for 4 hours. And then if we can't fill the shift, a manager on call is coming in. So they're doing that on top of their leadership responsibilities. So increased resident acuity. So a growing number of residents are entering long-term care with complex needs. We've talked about that a bit today. So Chelsea also went on to speak about the neurocognitive disorders, the high rate of residents that have those. This supports us needing more nursing resources. The RNs are ones who help respond to the the responsive behaviors and critical incidents. So RN staffing levels really do need to increase to support this change on the night shift. So impact on the RN workload. So we are blessed at Fairmount Home to have 2 wonderful full-time nurse practitioners as well as our medical directive. And this has created more medical orders. So in saying that, the RNs are solely responsible for enacting those, as well as, you know, we want to ensure that the overnight shift now can meet those demands as well to have timely and appropriate care. So just as a final point, so I've been blessed to work here since 2003. Sorry, I guess it was 2004, but I was interviewed in 2003. And since then, we have only increased our RN staffing on a Wednesday shift to help with admissions and other duties. But we have not increased our RN staffing other than on those days. So this does not support the rising acuity of resident and expanded scope of the RN administrative and clinical responsibilities. I feel that, again, with the complex care needs that you've heard of, things are getting more challenging. So the project description is to propose the addition of a second RN on the 11 to 7 a.m. night shift by requesting daily coverage, which would be 2 part-time positions to cover those daily needs. This chart here represents an RN to resident staffing ratio in comparison to those municipal homes in the Southeast and Central Ontario. So as shown here at the top, Halliburton has a ratio of 1 RN for 62 residents, and near the bottom home is Fairmount, and we have the ratio is 1 RN providing care to 128 residents. So the average staffing ratio is of RN to resident is 1 RN to every 94 residents. So in comparison to the peer municipal homes, our staffing level is amongst the lowest, impacting ability to meet care demands and the changing needs. Okay, so I'm going to go through a case scenario. So please try to imagine this. On a night shift, a single RN was responsible for 128 residents, supported by a single RPN that does have limited complex care training and supervisory skills, although they are very essential to our home. An outbreak on one home area has left 4 residents with diarrhea and vomiting, requiring close monitoring and IV hydration, which the RN is solely responsible for. At 1 a.m., a resident falls and sustains injuries. Due to the resident's cognitive decline and a change in behavior, they repetitively attempt to get up unassisted. So we're worried about further injuries. The RN began assessing the resident for possible delirium. And for those who are not aware of what delirium is, that requires ongoing observation and is a medical emergency due to a sudden change in mental state that can be a sign of serious underlying issues requiring prompt interventions. At approximately 2 a.m., a code white is called in response to an uncontrolled physical aggressive incident requiring an urgent team response. The code was called by the RN after a violent altercation between 2 male residents. One male resident awoke experiencing a night terror, which has been happening more frequently. And some behaviors, this in particular, were difficult to de-escalate using all of our GPA training, as well as all policies were suggested by responsive behaviors teams. The resident then pushed the other resident, and it was required that staff intervened to separate the individuals for safety. As the de-escalating techniques were unsuccessful, they did call emergency services for further assistance. And as there's 128 residents, upstairs, a medical emergency occurred and the RN also got a call and had to try to help delegate the situation. But it did require her attention as she had to assess the medical emergency, contact the physician and the family, administer emergency medications, and determine if hospital transfer were in the goals of care of the resident or their substitute decision maker. During this shift, this scenario illustrates the overwhelming critical and ethical burden placed on a lone RN during the night shift, managing multiple emergencies ranging from outbreaks and falls to violent incidents and medical crises. These require rapid decision-making, delegation, and constant vigilance to ensure the safety and dignity of our 128 residents while ensuring our general care philosophy. The RN must fulfill her legal and professional obligations while navigating these complex care needs and limited support. The current staffing level does present challenges due to some delayed responses to potential gaps in oversight, ultimately compromising some quality and continuity of care. The RN does uphold those standards and the RPN as well. It's set out by the College of Nurses and is a second RN on nights is urgently needed to ensure clinical leadership, support, and resident care. So the RN staffing, this is the current versus the future request. So you can see on this graph that on the day shift, 7 to 3 p.m., as well as the 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., we have 2 RNs on duty, 1 per floor. And our future proposal is to match that and put a second RN on the night shift so that each shift will have that consistent supervision and responsive across all hours. Some operational efficiencies for the team. So if this proposal is accepted, it will directly contribute to some efficiencies. By scheduling 2 registered nurses on each shift, we will reduce the risk of falling out of compliance with the Fixing Long-Term Care Act. Particularly in the events of an unexpected RN vacancy, this proactive staffing approach strengthens our ability to meet mandated care standards by having a second RN scheduled. Also, staff retention. We have heard that it will strengthen the RN job satisfaction, increasing and decreasing the risk of burnout as the load can feel quite heavy to that lone RN on night shift. So they can share those responsibilities and feel that their license is not at risk. This approach will reduce the need for mandatory RN staffing and minimize the need for management to come in and cover the night shifts. The care and the entire care team would feel more supported when leadership and clinical expertise align with the demands of the care. So then budget compliance. We would like to ensure that when the current position is both budgeted and scheduled, that's important because staffing costs are accurately forecasted and controlled. This alignment prevents overspending, ensures efficient resource use, and limits external agency costs. Lastly, enhanced resident care and safety is a priority, and having 2 RNs on would enhance the responsiveness to those supervisory concerns and ensure effective management of emergencies and ensuring all complex cases are handled well over the night shift. Okay, so budget versus actual spending. So we took a look at some data this year. I had some help from a little friend. And so January to August is the data that we had pulled. So we would like to request that second RN, feeling that it's imperative. Our current budget costs for an RN and an RPN for this time period was $243,038 in just those months. The actual costs incurred were $314,933. So our variance is that we did overspend by 71,000 trying to staff that night shift. You know, it's not safe to have one registered staff work on nights. So we have to do what we need to do to get at least a second staff member on. This is because when an RPN shift cannot be filled at straight time, which seemed to be our biggest challenge, and we are finding that, you know, there are some challenges recruiting RPNs right now, and they're really not picking up the night shift. So what that meant was, if that shift remained unfilled, we were extending the offer to higher paid, overtime to the RPNs, which is a higher expense. And then we would go to the RNs and then offer it at overtime to the RNs, which of course is a higher expense. And then if that's not filled, we would go to the agency staff, which have helped us, but there's costs associated with agency staff. So in saying that, and then if that failed, we were getting a call 11 o'clock at night, you need to come in at 3 a.m. So, you know, looking a little further at some data, 70% of the shifts in this time were already filled by 2 RNs. 50% of those shifts were required agency at night. And 10 times nursing managers came in last minute. So proactive workforce planning may reduce the financial impact associated with filling vacancies through higher paid roles. County Council policy direction and ensuring our Frontenac County strategic plan is followed. You know, ensuring that we strengthen our service delivery is paramount. Continuing to ensure quality and general care is our mission and our vision. Some financial evaluation. You can see here the total cost of this project is $223,647. The county portion would be $71,567, and the city of Kingston's portion would be $152,080 by asking for 2 part-time RNs that would ensure 1 extra RN each night. So that would be daily coverage. So just in conclusion, you know, there's a few reasons that we're here today, to ensure that we're meeting risk management, to ensure budget compliance, and to ensure quality care. I want to thank you very much for your time today and your continued support for Fairmount. Proud to work here.
And we thank you for a very thorough presentation. Much appreciated. We'll see if there's any questions or comments. Councillor Vanderwall.
Did we not add one for a night shift last year? There was one alone on night shift in one of the wards or wing, and we added a person because we didn't want one person.
So I'm going to go back a handful of years, and it was an RPN. We added an RPN.
Last year?
Many years ago. I can look at the date, what year it was, Ron, but we're going back far, like years.
I was positive that we added something last year for the night.
OT was last year, the occupational therapist. Yeah,
Okay.
I can email you and send you the year
Yeah, no.
back in the day.
That's fine.
No, it's a good thought.
As a counselor sitting here, every proposal sounds like it needs to be done. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be done. I agree. I don't think somebody should be there all night, one person on their own. I can't imagine when chaos breaks out what they feel like. So I'm not disputing that. I think it's important. So I'm not saying I'm opposed to it. I support it. But every time as I sit here as a counselor, it doesn't matter what proposal comes forward. How do you say no? Because it makes sense.
Get your wallet out.
Yeah,
Well, it's not my wallet. It's all of us as taxpayers.
no, Thanks for your comments, Rod. I appreciate them.
Perhaps I can add a little bit to that, and that so much of what you do is regulated, right? So we don't have a lot of flexibility in some of these decisions. Is that a fair statement? Or perhaps Susan would answer that.
Yeah.
Yes, I would agree with your statement. Long-term care is a very heavily regulated organization. Service.
It's I've worked in acute care, I've worked in community care, I've worked in family care. There's no comparison.
Thank you. Councilor Greenwood Spears.
Thank you for bringing this forward and I'm fully in support of it. We can be penny wise, pound foolish, and that from a finance perspective and that, but I'll tell you, any of the newer grads and that get hired in, and if they land on that shift and they're the only one there, they will not be staying. It will put their license at risk, and they'll recognize it, because when you're dealing with the elderly, you're dealing with people that have accumulated diagnosis and behaviors over the course of 80 and 90 years. They are the most complex to work with, and they're not acute. It's not something you can fix in a couple of hours. So this is certainly needed in that. One of the concerns I have is oftentimes, as you're pointing out, putting the verification of the doctor's orders onto the night nurses, as well as staffing and dealing with everybody that takes a bad turn during the night, or you walk on shift and they're already having the bad turn and you have a lot of concerns. I just wonder in that if, and I know that there are nurse practitioners and if there can be more put towards for their verification, because by the time it's the night shift, if that's the fail safe and they're restocking the meds and everything else, that may be the time that there should have been blood work ordered or something else caught long before. And I just look at it that it's skinny to just even have the 2 RNs. They're entitled to a break. But they're also entitled to support. And if we don't have enough support, you'll never get the newer grads to stay with the most high need patient.
Councilor Leonard.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for the presentation, Emily. One of my biggest concerns is oversight. You got one person, 5 incidents going at one time. What's the oversight? That you're not going to be able to properly take care of this certain person here because you're tied up with this one. And I fully agree that there should be one more.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah, thank you. And Ray, Uncle Ray. Sorry. Out of respect, I had to call you by your name. Certainly having the RPN on, they're so valuable as well. They're essential. So they have great assessment skills. So we would have 3 on nights that would be able to manage helping, and the RNs could help delegate the RPN. So I do feel confident we'd be more supported with the addition that I'm asking for.
It would appear you have at least one family member who's in support of this.
If I can be transparent, I've had many family on council, but I'm lucky for that too.
Councilor Fowler.
Just very quickly, what is the cost to cover for that one person? Just the basic is, like I got 2 figures here. I got 71,000.
County portion? Absolutely. I should listen better to my administrator. It might be a little bit tough to see, sir, but you can see the county portion is in the middle, but then the total cost is on the
I
left.
just wanted to confirm that. That's what I thought. Thank you.
Okay, I'll leave it up for now.
Warden Licky.
So I support this. Okay, so I'm thinking if it was my family member or it was me or whatever, and something happened, and there's so much else going on, and we didn't make, as a board of directors or as a council, every opportunity to alleviate that issue, I would see us in court. And whether or not we would win or not, it would cost us a fortune for legal fees. And I think, there's this Fixing Long-Term Care Act. There's, it hasn't passed yet, has it? It hasn't been adopted?
Yeah, the
Did they
fixing.
take out the responsibility issues for the board of directors? Because it, okay, well,
That's,
all right, so there is
So-
tremendous responsibility put on the board of directors. And if something messes up, even though we do everything, we're looking up big time and there's no insurance coverage. And in this case, if something would happen, and maybe it happened once a year and somebody got hurt that they couldn't get to, and they became worse or they died, We didn't do everything in our power within reason. That's the way a judge will look at it. I don't want to be there, so I'm in favor of this. And I'm thinking practically about it, not, trying to put the emotional side out of it, so.
Ms. Brandt, did you want to comment on that? The question regarding the act in question? In terms of our legal responsibilities?
Yeah, just to outline, Bill 14 is currently, it's past its first reading. It has not gone for second reading, but it does place liability, not only on the board, so on county council, but also directly on the staff of the home, that if something were to happen, they could personally be held liable. So what Warden Lichty is saying is correct.
Thank you for the clarification. Other comments, questions? CEO Farrell.
Just an added note, similar to what I mentioned before, this is another big issue that the EOWC, the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, continues to push for in terms of our advocacy. When we met with the Minister of Long-Term Care, this was another item that we brought forward in terms of liabilities. So there's been a couple different letters written and so a lot of advocacy work around pushing back on this specific piece of the bill.
Sorry, Warden Lichty.
So on that, when we did address the minister at AMO, she seemed receptive to changes. She seemed that she was aware of what was going on, but that's all nice and dandy until you actually see it in writing. So I don't know how that happened, but it's what we were asking for was to have it changed to be the equivalent of a hospital board. So we'll see what actually comes out at the end of the day, but it could be quite serious.
Councillor Greenwood-Spears, I think we'll make this the last sorry. Ron, you did have your hand up earlier. We'll come back to you after Councillor Greenwood-Spears.
Okay. So just to go back to the penny wise, pound foolish, I think what we have is so far this year to August, basically $70,000 already spent to cover this off. And that, everybody keep in mind that when you're asked to stay for that extra 4 hours, that's a time and a half. And if it's on a holiday, it's going to be more. And quite frankly, it's fortunate that you call in management, because I worked many double shifts. No management ever arrives. And 16 hours later, it gets very expensive. And that, so really it's the right thing to do from so many perspectives, because after you do that, you're usually going to phone in sick the next day because you're recovering.
Thank you. And
Well said.
Councillor Vanderwall, this will be the last question or comment.
It's a comment. I don't like the tone of threatening to say liability. I don't like that being brought up. You can make that argument with paramedics. You can make that argument with Fairmount Home. You can make that argument with our fire department, Sydenham or South Frontenac Council with municipal water. You can keep on going. Don't use that. That doesn't mean it's a blank check. Do the proposal, and we know what the risks are for staff. Let's look at it that way. I don't like that comment about a threat of being sued if we didn't do this or whatever. Let's just look at it of the need that we have.
Your point being that that applies in almost all cases. That risk is in all cases. Thank you very much. Yeah. So if I could just make it overall, sorry, Emily, go ahead.
I think your questions are done for me, and I just wanted to again, thank you so much.
Thank you. And you can say goodbye to your uncle. I guess a comment for the CEO, it would seem like based on this conversation that we need to bring this issue of the future of Fairmont to the table sooner than later. Is that a fair comment?
If you're speaking about the redevelopment piece, yeah, we continue
Yes.
to explore and investigate those options. We have ongoing conversations with the different partners at play, so.
Thank you. So seeing no other questions or comments, the time right now is 10:08. We'll take a 15-minute break and return at 10:23. Thank you. And I believe our deputy treasurer is going to lead us through that.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this spreadsheet should look fairly familiar to you. I believe the first exercise that we need to do is review the external requests that were brought forward at the October council meeting. So I've got those 3 requests up on the screen. Yeah, go ahead. So I guess we'll turn it back over to council to determine what we're going to keep in here.
So the first request on the chart there is the Food Policy Council. Am I reading that correctly? All those in favor? Anybody disagree or any nays? That's approved. Thank you. The next one is the Lodgepole Arts request for $5,000. Any comments, questions? Sorry, I'm recovering from my butter chart. Counselor Vanderwall.
Could I ask what dollar amount the Council of the Islands contributed to Lodgepole Arts? And in the report that the lady presented to us, they had raised $80,000 for this event already.
I don't know if we have that information. Counselor Greenwood Spears.
She did not ask for any monetary assistance. What we provided was free access and support of both our community center for 3 days, as well as our town hall for 2 days. And that was basically the in-kind, I believe, that was requested from us.
So no contribution of funds.
It was all in
Thank you.
kind, if I'm correct. It was all in kind. Yeah. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor of the $5,000 award to Lodgepole Arts? All those who are not in favor, the request is denied. The third item is for Frontenac Center Heritage Society $10,000 request. I'm going to ask the CEO to clarify.
So this Frontenac Central Frontenac Heritage Society request was the request, if council recalls, about the caboose.
So Councillor Smith.
Just to let you know, they have come to council as well, and I believe they're asking for 5,000. And we are going into our budgets with it, but I think it has a pretty good chance of being approved. It is a very used area as a museum, and kids love it, and they keep it very nice, and they're always working to do it, make something better.
So other comments, questions? Warden Licky.
This is probably to come, well, it is the Counselor Smith. You're in the group, your park already has a caboose.
Yes, they
That's the
do.
other end though.
This is a different, an older caboose than the one they've got.
Okay. That's
Sounds
fine. I
good.
was just asking the question.
Okay, thank you. Warden, sorry, Councillor
Whatever.
Vanderwall.
I think this should fall under economic or tourism. I don't think this should be a request of this county council. I have no problem if Central Frontenac wants to do a tourism initiative or a community improvement or something to that effect. But I don't think it needs to come as a request for $10,000 for tourism for Central Frontenac. So I don't support it.
Other questions, comments? Councillor Leonard.
I've stopped there several times. Yeah, it is a nice little spot, but why do you want 2 cabooses? Why wouldn't they go to, say, let's just say like, well, the old type or ones that used to transport people in, and turn it into something that they can show people exactly what the whole system is. So I am not in favor of the caboose, but I would be in favor if they decided to go the other way.
Other, sorry, my apology, everyone. Councillor Smith.
Just counselor's good. You'll get all of us.
All right.
I can't speak to that because I don't sit on that committee. I think this came up as a deal that they could get a caboose. I think it started a little cheaper than the ending cost. Maybe could we propose half of this instead of 10,000? Let's see if we can give them 5,000. They are looking for a grant, and I'm sure they'd be happy with any amount that we could give them.
Thank you. Counselor Gowdy.
Thank you. Also, it is where two trails meet, so it is tourism in Central Frontenac, but we also promote the trail as bringing people in, and it is at a junction where two of the trails meet and split. They are planning a huge event, which we would be mentioned in this summer. They're unveiling a mural about with the first train crossing the causeway there on the KMP. So it does tie into the history of Frontenac County. Maybe Mayor Smith is right. Maybe we don't give 10,000, we lower the amount, and they're grateful for any amount, which would be helpful with their grant proposal.
Counselor Vanderwall.
I guess I would ask Mr. Farrell or the treasurer, do we have money in a reserve for economic development or tourism to that effect? You might want to save your speech about the trailhead for the $100,000 ask for the next thing. So I just can't support it. I just can't support it. That would be like Peter Truesdale put a train in Sydenham and then come to the county and ask, could you pay for it? I don't agree with that.
So if I can clarify, then the suggestion now is to reduce the amount from 10,000 to 5,000. Can we have comments on that specifically? Anybody, any additional comments? Sorry, Warden Litkey.
Okay, so I think that, you know, we're all in this together, all 4 townships, and a little bit of this and that from one to the other is okay, not a lot. I'm a little bit leery about approving something that Central Frontenac hasn't provided a firm direction on. Once they did, if the proponent came back and said, like, during the year, we're looking for this again, I would be much more favorable. But in the absence of that, 5,000 still seems like a lot. I would go with maybe 2.5 or 3.
So Councillor Fowler?
Just a question for Fran. Has this thing been purchased already, or is it set up for transportation, or some of the costs going to be getting it here?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, the biggest cost is the transportation. They are raising money, I believe she said, when they had $10,000 at this point. And they're fundraising all the time and looking for grants as well.
Other comment? Mr. Farrell.
I just wanted to circle back to Councillor Vanderwall's comment. So right now, the way this is set up, it would be a hit to the levy. So you're seeing the $10,000 would be a 0.07%. If council through this discussion wants to play with that number, Phil is able to update that number, I think, on the fly to show what that levy impact. But back to your comment that this is an impact to the levy, not considered under a reserve.
Councillor Vanderwall.
So when we start down this road, then I have a problem. I can argue that Centennial Park is at the trail. We're spending 650,000 this year. Can I come to the county then and ask for, we needed money for the ice stock rink or the pickleball court, or we're putting all new accessible bathrooms in there? How many, 500 meters from the trail? I just think we're starting down something that I don't think needs to be here.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Smith.
We do this every year. We have people come in and tell us what they want. So that's what these 3 groups have done. And every year we take a look at what we're prepared to help. And yes, it goes right to the levy. So we're at 0.09, which is a little bit of a drop on $10 million budget, or 12, whatever it is. I don't know. Maybe we should just change it and not take any requests. if they should be slotted every place else. But this is the way we've done it for, I don't know, 30 years.
The only thing that council has control over.
Warden Lichty?
So this is not a township coming to us and asking for support. This is essentially a private group. Pardon? No,
So
that's a different.
let me ask the warden to finish his comment.
So so I just want to draw the difference between a local government, like a lower tier government, that's us, coming to an upper tier government, that's here, and saying, we want something, will you oblige? As opposed to a private group saying X, Y, and Z, we can help do this. So if we're talking about the KNP Trail, that's fine. If we're just talking about Central Frontenac, something a little bit different. So that's why I suggested we do something like $2,500 or $3,000.
This is a totally separate agency that looks after their own money. They are
Call the
not a
question.
committee of council.
Councilor Spears.
Call the question, please. I think
Thank you for that. So, any other, so we need to parse this down a little bit. The suggestion was made to reduce the amount from 5,000, and then I heard a suggestion to reduce to 2,500. So I'm going to ask the question, if the amount is reduced to 2,500, sorry, $3,000, is council in favor of that? So I'll need a show of hands if you're in favor of $3,000 first of all. I see 3 votes, therefore it's denied. So then the overall request for any amount of money, all those in favor of providing any money to that project, please raise your hand if you're in favor. Yeah, taking the amount of money out, all right? So is there any,
Are you asking council, is anyone on council in favor of providing any money of any amount to this particular request?
yes, I'm trying to clarify the amount of the donation or the request.
We've gone from 10 to 3 to none.
The last comment I heard was from the warden, which was a suggestion of $3,000.
You had suggested 5.
But none up there.
Asked for a reduction, that was denied. Let's vote on the 10.
yeah, I called the question. So the amendment was the 3,000. It got denied. I think we go to the next.
Okay, so all those in favor of a donation or a contribution of $10,000 to that project, all those in favor? I see 2 hands. All those not in favor? It's denied. Thank you.
Okay.
In the 3 years I've been here, we always give to the Food Policy Council. Is there any way, like they come every year and ask, and we always support it. Is there any way we can just move it to something permanent that they don't have to keep coming back, that we know we're going to support food security in the area? Is there an appetite for that?
Perhaps the CEO or the clerk could respond to that.
I can speak a little bit of it. They've typically only come for $500. The past 2 years, they've had some special projects, so they've upped it to 2,500. I don't know what their ask would be next year. Currently, the county's the only one who funds this policy, but they are now going and applying for a grant through the city's food security grant program. So the ask next year may be reduced again. We just don't know what it is. So at this point, I wouldn't know what to put in the budget annually.
Thank you.
I
Counselor.
actually appreciate that they come and explain what they did with the money and they asked for it. I know one of the requests was, I'm asking for this amount in perpetuity. And I thought, well, at least the Food Council comes every year, explains what they did, and then asks for whatever that amount is. So I do appreciate that.
So Councilor Gunn, does that answer your question? Thank you very much. Mr. Farrell.
I wanted to sneak in another comment here on that last one, the Central Frontenac Heritage Society. So council did previously provide a letter of support as they're seeking funding through the ROD program. Just a reminder that we did provide a letter of support through today's discussions, it doesn't look like we're providing funding, but the county of council of Frontenac County did provide a letter of support. Just a reminder.
Thank you for that clarification. So those three have been dealt with. I'm going to look to our CEO or our deputy treasurer for any further steps that are required.
Okay. All right. So now with the council's direction, we will, we'll go over to the levy graph. The carryover here is under external requests. So I will update that so that it's updated in the levy. And then, we have the CPI target and the dedicated capital, which I think have already been approved. And what we're looking for direction for now is the 5 projects that were proposed. So I guess I will turn that back to council.
Councillor Vanderwall.
They're in that number though. They are in that, they're already in the 486.
That is correct, yes.
86.
Which brings us to 4.86.
Yeah.
So if we
Correct.
take nothing out, that's where we're at.
Yep.
Is everybody clear on that before we go further? Councillor Greenwood-Spears.
Sorry, I believe it'd be back in the CPI target, and that I'd like to make a motion and that regarding what has been a very static figure to councillor expense accounts. It was set in 2015 timeframe at $4,000 and has never been increased. I'd like to have a motion, and I have support for that from our warden Lichty, to have it increased to $5,000 and then linked to CPI after that, so it shouldn't have to come back to council. These expense accounts actually help cover our conferences and accommodations, and costs have gone up. So
Councillor, let
this-
me get a seconder and put it on the floor for
Yeah.
discussion.
The clerk can read the motion. She has the actual copy.
So that is moved by Councillor Greenwood Spears, seconded by Warden Lichty. Be resolved that the council expense accounts be increased to $5,000 for 2026 and be increased annually by CPI.
So, Councillor, it's your motion. Do you want to speak to it?
I thought I just did.
Okay, thank you. Warden Lichty.
I'd like to correct something that Councillor Greenwood Spears said. I supported it simply to get it on the floor for a discussion among the councillors.
Thank you. Well, we'll start here. Councillor Smith.
Yes, I'm sorry, I can't support it. I think a couple of conferences a year should be enough. I don't think that would take up the $4,000. I think committee work and mileage and that sort of thing could be covered in the $4,000. I think if you're doing more than that, then it's something that's maybe more that you give up conferences to do your committee work. I think it has to be a balance.
That's a separate motion.
Councillor
that-
Vanderwall.
As mayor of South Frontenac, I am paid one amount. And if I do want to go to a convention, I can either bill one through the county or I can bill it through our municipality. I don't think they would say anything even if I wanted to go to 2 conventions. All my committee work, all of my other stuff is all inclusive. And we did vote more or less last year that we would keep up with whatever non-union staff get as salary increases as a council. So I will not support this.
Other comments? Councillor Fowler.
Yes, the cost of living or the expenses of all these conferences have gone up. So there is an increase there that we should take into consideration too.
Thank you. Other comments? Warden Lichty.
So we kind of figure in North Frontenac, it's $2,500 to $3,000, emphasis on the 3,000 to go to a conference. So cost of the conference is 600 to 1,000. Your accommodation over 3 or 4 nights is $1,500. You get an additional allowance per day for spending money, at least in North Frontenac. I'm well covered if I want to go to a conference, and I can do one through the county and I can do one through the actual township. And, that's more than enough. We get, if we want, we can charge mileage to go to the extra meetings, but we don't get paid extra, and we don't expect extra to go to a particular committee meeting, whatever.
Councillor Greenwood-Spears, any further comment on your motion?
Well, it seems to be within the county of Frontenac that there has been no inflation in the past decade. And that because the expense account setting of the figure of 4,000 was made in 2015. So I believe that it is more than reasonable to raise it to 5 and link it to CPI. That does not go straight into your pocket. That's just dealing with the reality of the increase of costs along the line. And as for the cost of a conference, it can easily be over $1,000 in that for even just the registration. So anyways, I think that it's more than reasonable, but apparently in Frontenac, there's no increase in a decade for expenses, and that's unfortunate.
So with those comments, then I'll call the Councillor Gowdy.
Thank you. I think that I agree with a lot of the comments that were made. I agree with what you're trying to say, Councillor Greenwood Spears. But in this day and age with conferences, you pick and choose what you go to, and you can also attend virtually. We had a presentation last night at our council table where our treasurer went to a finance conference in Niagara Falls, but our deputy treasurer chose not to attend and attended virtually. So she still collected all the information and brought valuable stuff back to the table at a cheaper expense. So it's about choices. We're put here by the people, we represent the people, and we're responsible to the people for the money we're spending. And so that's coming out of my pocket as well as a taxpayer. So, you know, it's a fine line, and you just have to be careful what you spend.
Sorry, Councillor Leonard.
Well, I don't agree with it. Maybe I haven't spent any money out of that $4,000, but I think anything over and above the $4,000 is for your own personal gains. How much of that do we see coming back to the table? And there's where I have the problem. And like Nikki just said, it's our taxpayers' dollars, and that's what we have to watch, and that's what we have to protect here. And I do not agree with it. Thank you.
Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed to the motion? The motion is denied. Thank you. I believe we have another motion.
So there is one other motion coming forward in terms of the status quo budget. Moved by Councillor Greenwood Spears, seconded by Councillor Fowler. Be it resolved that the remuneration of expense bylaw that provides remuneration for attendance at external boards be amended to include committees of those boards.
So we have a motion and a seconder, correct? Okay, discussion. Actually, is it Councillor Greenwood Spears, it's your motion. You want to speak to it?
Yes. Some of the counselors are on external boards, and we get remuneration for attending the meeting of the board. That's in the budget. However, there are times within those boards that there are committees formed for whatever reason. Sometimes they're standing committees such as a finance or a governance. Sometimes it might be a building committee. Sometimes it might be a merger committee in that. And I believe it is in the best interest that the counselor that's on the board at least considers whether or not the interest of the county can be best communicated by those boards and by those committees, and that they would bring in recommendations to the board. And in my experience, having been on the Southeast Health Unit board now, it has been to the benefit of all. And you can either be elected onto those committees, you can be requested onto the committees, or you can volunteer for the committees. But there are committees that decisions brought or recommendations from those committees brought to the board can have a significant impact overall. So I think that there shouldn't be a limitation. And I can tell you that in my experience with Southeast Health Unit, this county is the only one that doesn't support the people that are on the finance or the governance committee or previously the set committees, and that none of the others have had the difficulty in getting financial support for a member to sit on those committees. And yet I can tell you the value of those committees has been essential.
CEO Farrell.
I just want to clarify that it's not that the funding mechanism to support those pieces comes from the $4,000 counselor allocation. So we've had conversations between the county and the Southeast Public Health. That was our message, was that there is a funding mechanism to pay for that. It would be through the $4,000 counselor allocation.
So questions, comments? Counselor Vanderwall.
This is just the same request, just in a different venue. I've never been on an external committee where I've thought about, should I take this because I'm getting paid or not getting paid? The former mayor of previous island was on the health unit as long as I was here and never made a request for extra money outside of what we were all being paid to be on extra committees. So it's just asking for more money for the same thing, just going around the 4,000. So I still don't support it.
Other comments, questions? Counselor Smith.
Just a personal question. You don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but how many conferences did you go to within that $4,000?
I went to AMO and Roma, and then I paid for my own to the Healthy Democracies. And the health unit pays for Symposium of Alpha, which is the governing board for all health units. And I am the vice chair on it.
Other comments, questions from counselors? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion? All those not in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much. The motion is denied. So I'll just check with Madam Clerk. Sorry, Mr. Farrell?
Yeah, so just a clarification, that conversation would have fell under other that you're seeing here. We just need to go back now with Phil at the helm to go through the project proposals in or out.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if you need a motion, I'll make a motion that we accept as presented there with the deletions or whatever you want to call it.
So the motion on the floor is to accept all proposals as with one vote. That's by Counselor Vanderwall and seconded by Counselor Smith. Any comments, questions?
Want that vote here now, or do we have to stay? Doesn't matter to me. I could change it to say, bring this forward to council if you feel better with that. I don't have a problem with that.
So I think it could be just a show of hands if you want to accept all project proposals, because there is a motion in the actual report. And that motion is that council approve the 2026-2030 business plans as presented, and further that council include the following project proposals for inclusion in the 2026 draft budget deliberations, and then all 5 project proposals are within that motion. So if it's just a show of hands with no discussion that you want to accept all proposals, we can just go straight to that motion.
Thank you. So those in favor of just going to the, sorry, Greenwood Spears.
Just a quick observation that combined, the paramedics amount to about a 2% of that, and that's significant. Just want to point that out.
Thank you for that observation. All those in favor of whatever message our clerk delivered for us.
So it's basically the resolution from the report. So that's
Thank you.
moved by Councillor Vanderwall, seconded by Councillor Smith, that council approve the 2026-2030 business plans as presented, and further that council include the following project proposals for inclusion in the 2026 draft budget deliberations. So Fairmount Home, we have responsive behaviors recreationist full-time and a registered nurse full-time, increased RN coverage on the night shift. And through paramedic services, there's the additional 12-hour, 7-day-a-week crew, and the increased ambulance fleet by 3 new vehicles, and the superintendent of performance standards training full-time.
So we've had discussion. All those in favor of that motion? Passed. Sorry, Councillor Vanderwall.
I would just like to make a comment that we basically have no control over this as a budget process, as a council, but what we did have control over, we showed our taxpayers that we didn't give it to ourselves either.
Duly noted. The next item on the agenda is 2025-085 Corporate Services Grants to Others, Public Meeting Budget Comments. Recommendation?
So that is moved by Councillor Leonard and seconded by Councillor Fowler that Council of the County of Frontenac receive the corporate services grants to others funding requests from outside agency members, municipalities, report for information, and further that council forward the funding request from outside agency member municipalities for final budget consideration as follows. So Food Policy Council of KFLNA, $2,500. Lodgepole Arts 2026 National Indigenous Presenters and an annual request, 0. Central Frontenac Heritage Railway Park Caboose Mural Project, 0.
Any comments, questions? All those in favor? Passed. That concludes that portion of the agenda. We're now on to communications. Seeing none, motions, notice of motions that have been given. Seeing none, other business. Seeing none, sorry, Warden?
So, just a comment. As the warden, on behalf of myself, the deputy warden, well, hang on, let me finish. As the warden of the County of Frontenac, on behalf of myself and the deputy warden of the council, I would like to thank the CAO, Kevin Farrell, the senior management staff and the staff for putting this together for us and for putting it together and explaining things in a way that we can all understand and an opportunity to actually sit down and do this. I think we should, as council, we should give them a hand.
That's right. Any other business or comments folks want to make? Councilor Greenwood Spears.
Thank you very much. I have had a brief discussion with Kevin, the CAO, and that regarding the preparation of the papers and that for budget consideration, and how it was a bit of a challenge and an Easter egg hunt to find all the pieces of the papers. We won't be setting another budget this particular council. It'll be the newly elected council by the next time. And I made the recommendation that there's an option to have a binded group of all the relevant papers and that available if requested, and that to that new group, because it's going to be important for them to look at the budget and they shouldn't be looking at things or missing things ahead of time. And that's my recommendation statement.
Mr. Farrell.
So yeah, years ago, we used to pull together large binder packages for council in an effort to eliminate the paper and the constant switching out. We've switched to a digital version that we've been using for the last number of years. So it goes out, as you know, as a website with all the details accessible through PDFs. If there's one-off requests for a preference for councillors going forward, we can deal with those as a one-off.
Warden Litkey.
Along what Councilor Greenwood Spears was saying, when you come to the new council, at least the first time, it should maybe be a 15 or 20-minute Zoom call or a session set aside so the new councilors can learn how to navigate the actual budget page. I mean, it's all there once you know where it is. It's just boom, boom, it opens right up. That's not a problem. But, you know, if it eases someone's way of getting through it, I would, you know, as a new counselor, I would have appreciated it. The first time was a challenge. Now it's like, boom, I'm done, but I know where it all is.
And I support the environmentally friendly budget process. No, it's in all that one. Because when I had the binder and everything, I thought it was just a total waste. You look through it and then that's it. And
Killed a lot of trees.
So
I appreciate this way. I have no problem with it this way.
So Mr. Farrell has taken those comments under consideration. Appreciate it. All right. So seeing no other business, I would like to make one comment. I want to thank council and staff for your patience as I've managed my way through or waddled my way through some aspects of this procedure. And also for the public, I think it's important to understand that this is committee of the whole, we're talking budget, and the rules of normal council practice are somewhat waived, so we can have more discussion, which is somewhat informal. That should not be perceived by the public as we don't care. We're not serious. We're just trying to make sure we have an open and honest conversation. So thank you all for your attendance. And I think we need a motion to adjourn.
Moved by Warden Lichty, seconded by Councillor Vandewaal, that the meeting hereby adjourn at 10:58 a.m.
All those in favor?